And 24 years ago today, WWF did their first ever Monday Night Raw at Madison Square Garden. It was a very infamous show. We had Stone Cold Steve Austin stunnering Vince McMahon getting arrested. We had Cactus Jack debuting as that character. Obviously, he'd been Mankind and Did Love before.
Yeah.
And now, 24 years later, this is AEW's first big night in New York. So it's kind of bringing up that historical topic. So Finn, what are your memories of that Raw in 1997? And because they made a big sort of production of Raw's coming to the Garden, and it felt like a
Yeah.
big. I mean, because that was the show where behind the scenes, Vince McMahon told Bret Hart, "I want out of the deal." So on and off
Yeah.
screen, there was a lot going on that day.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bit. I mean, this was 2 days after One Night Only, which was the first WWF UK only pay per view on Sky Box Office, which was a very famous show.
Mm-hmm.
2 days later, Brett's smarting over the way that Davey Boy Smith was defeated in Birmingham for the European title by Shawn Michaels, his longtime rival. So, I mean, Brett wasn't in a great mood when he arrived at MSG, I imagine. His mood only soured from there. I mean, let's face it, Brett wasn't in a good mood, permanently in 1997, let's be honest. So his mood only soured when Vince told him, listen, I'm going to have to breach your contracts. I can't afford to pay you. Was it 1.5 million a year? I think he was on, wasn't
Yeah.
it, guaranteed?
For
I
3
think that was
years.
the amount.
Yeah.
That's it. So I know the turning point for WWF in terms of finances was September. And I know The Unforgiven in Your House was because that was the first 3 hour in your house event, wasn't it, Kenny?
Yeah, that was the Ground Zero one. Yeah.
Ground Zero, that's right. They put the price up. The buy rate held up. They took in like loads more revenue from that show than previous in your house events. And I know that was a turning point for the company, but perhaps Vince wasn't aware of that when he gave Brett the bad news. Who knows what was going through Vince's mind? Who knows what games he was playing? Well, we would
Probably
know
not.
about 7 weeks later, but we didn't know at the time. It felt to me like a huge show. One thing that really stuck with me, Kenny, was when Foley came out in his Cactus Jack attire, that he'd gone to like the top of the line costume maker, and it was the nicest Cactus Jack outfit he'd ever worn in all of his career. And I remember thinking, wow, that looks like a WWF quality attire that you're wearing there. And obviously it was. I always remember the stunner, Austin Stunner and Vince. But little did we know where that was going to go. We had that incident, didn't we, in December where, was it Austin knocked Vince off the ring?
Yes.
I think Vince was standing on the ring apron and Austin hit the ropes and Vince hit the floor.
Uh-huh.
And that was kind of like another step towards what would be revealed the night after Royal Rumble, that Vince versus Austin was going to be a thing. But the MSG show, it felt huge. I think the event was sold out. Crowd was really hot. Just felt really eventful. It just felt like almost like a bit like the Super SmackDown we saw week last Friday, again at MSG. Just felt like a notable show, consequential show. Lots happening, lots of stuff that we would be talking about in future. I wasn't really imagining at the time that we'd be talking about it 24 years later. But there again, podcast didn't exist then, did they, Kenny? So,
No.
it just felt like a huge show. And obviously Nitro won the ratings that night. But it just felt like WWF was making all the right moves towards, in this rebuilding year that they were on, that was the phase 1997 rebuilding for huge growth in 98, which was precisely what happened. And that felt like a very important building block, on that rebuilding journey they were on. What do you remember about it, Kenny?
Because I remember they'd started the angle when Austin, after he got, because I mean this is how great the storytelling was then, that like when Austin got injured at SummerSlam, they've got this whole angle of everybody's trying to take care of him and he isn't accepting it, so he's stunnering JR and Slaughter and Lawler, and then it was Vince was the last guy. And I always remember, I mean, the fact that I can remember this verbiage verbatim, I appreciate the fact that you and the World Wrestling Federation care, but I also appreciate the fact that, hell, you can kiss my ass. And then he hits the stunner, and then Vince lies there shiggling like he's just had some sort of epileptic fit or something. He would go on to take the stunner in a better way in the future, but it actually added to it that he didn't sell it the way that he would in the future. And it felt like when he got arrested, and Lawler saying he's going directly to jail, it just felt like this massive moment. And I mean, without that, who knows if they would have went with Austin and Vince? But you could tell that night when Vince got stunnered, it felt so much bigger than all the other ones, and it just felt like you were like, oh, there's something here. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could see that there was like magic there, and everyone by this point knew that Vince was the owner of the company. We'd had the famous Shawn Michaels speech, hadn't we, the previous month, the night after SummerSlam, in which Michaels effectively turned heel and called him a Nimrod, and like Vince was there as we knew he was the owner. I mean, this had been acknowledged or hinted at, but it was like by this point it was common knowledge. It was part of the story, wasn't it, that Vince was the owner of the company. And that's what made it, even more noteworthy that Austin had done this to the man who owned the firm. So it was a massive moment in Austin's career, and Vince's as well. And you're right, the storytelling was just incredible. Here we are, September 22nd. Then we had the angle in December in which Austin knocks Vince off the ring apron. We're kind of thinking, is Vince going to become an on-screen character? Is he going to be a permanent heel? Because fans rejected the Brett speech after Survivor Series so wholeheartedly that he was clearly seen as the villain by the audience, and it just seemed like a natural thing. But then Vince kind of went away, and we didn't get the next leg of the tale until the night after Royal Rumble, in, to me, the greatest angle of all time.
Yeah.
And then Vince went away again, and we didn't really get the next step until the night after WrestleMania 14. And it just showed the level of faith that WWF had in its audience at the time, that it didn't have to just keep jogging its audience's memory with these little reminders, and that it would remember all these things, and that they could take like effectively 2 months off press the pause button for 2 months on a storyline, then bring it back, and it would be hotter than ever. So it was a magical time to be a fan of WWF after all the woes of 95 and 96 and WCW winning the ratings war and drawing bigger buy rates and signing so much WWF talent. It just felt like Vince and WWF and all the acts and everything, all the pieces were sort of moving in harmony, and they were working towards a common goal. It'd be nice to think they would do that again, Kenny, wouldn't it?
Oh God, it'd be so glorious if they did. Do you know what I remember actually? You mentioned that night in December '97 where Austin goes off the ropes and Vince falls off, and I remember they showed a clip on Livewire that weekend, which never was on the main Raw show, where after Raw went off the air, Vince took his jacket off and went and got a chair from ringside, and was kind of like almost going, "Come on back, fight me." And I remember watching that going, Vince versus Austin, really, like that? And then between Rumble and WrestleMania, the one thing we got was that Kevin Kelly interview where Kevin Kelly, hard-hitting journalist Finn, who said yes or no, do you want Steve Austin to win the title? And he eventually made Vince go, it's not just a no, it's a oh hell no. So like they were bubbling it. So the whole thing was just so well done, and it started in the Garden on that infamous Raw back in September '97.